India's next move against Pakistan, the strategy that changes everything. For decades, India has been caught in a cycle of reactions. Every time Pakistan provokes, India responds, but only after damage is done. This pattern is predictable, and predictability is weakness. Strategic preemption is not about striking first without cause. It is about controlling the narrative before the narrative controls you. Imagine a chessboard. The player who waits for every move to counter will eventually lose to the one who thinks 10 steps ahead. India's challenge is not that it lacks power. The challenge is that it hesitates to use its power with vision. Power without strategy is noise, and noise has never changed history. Preemption means clarity. It means refusing to let Pakistan dictate the rhythm of conflict. It means dismantling their leverage before they even raise it. This is not aggression, it's intelligence. For example, instead of waiting for cross-border terrorism to strike, India must suffocate the ecosystem that funds it, both internally and internationally. This requires a shift from defense to disruption. Stop reacting to their moves. Start shaping their reality. When Pakistan plans mischief, they must feel an invisible wall of consequences before they even act. That is psychological dominance, making them fear the cost of even thinking of destabilizing India. But why is this necessary now? Because time rewards only those who master it. Every delayed decision is a gift to your enemy. Every moment of silence is space for their next strategy. Preemption is not violence, it is precision. It is about creating a climate where Pakistan realizes that its old tactics are obsolete, that its provocations will no longer ignite chaos, but collapse its own credibility. Preemption is the art of control, and control is the soul of power. India must now write a new doctrine. Never wait to bleed before you defend. Never wait to suffer before you strike. Act first, not in anger, but in wisdom. Because the future will belong to the nation that does not just fight battles, but prevents them before they exist. War is expensive, and the battlefield has changed. The new battleground is not the desert or the mountains, it's the economy. Nations rise or fall not because of tanks, but because of trade, not because of soldiers, but because of currency. Strength. If India truly wants to neutralize Pakistan, the real weapon is not the missile, it is the market. Why? Because money does what armies cannot. It cripples ambition without firing a single shot. Pakistan's strength is an illusion held together by foreign aid and debt. What happens when that aid dries up, when no one invests, when their exports are crushed under the weight of sanctions and isolation? The nation begins to starve economically long before it bleeds militarily. That is where India's real power lies. India's economy is among the fastest growing in the world, while Pakistan is drowning in loans, begging the IMF for survival. Instead of wasting energy on retaliation, India must weaponize its economic clout to force Pakistan into irrelevance. Imagine this. Every global investor knows that India is the future one. 4 billion people, a tech powerhouse, a manufacturing hub. Now contrast that with Pakistan, a shrinking economy, unstable politics, and a failing state structure. India can exploit this gap by aggressively attracting foreign investment, creating global supply chains, and becoming the indispensable partner the world cannot ignore. When India dominates trade routes, tech innovation, and global markets, Pakistan will not just lose leverage, it will lose its voice on the world stage. Silence is the loudest defeat. And let's be clear, economic dominance is not charity, it is strategy. Every job created in India strengthens national security. Every industry shifted from China or Pakistan to India weakens the enemy. Foundation. India must lead in energy security, infrastructure, and digital finance, because when money flows into your borders, influence flows out, and influence is power. Here's the truth no one tells you. Pakistan does not fear India's army as much as it fears India's economic success. Why? Because success makes you magnetic and failure makes you toxic. If India rises as an economic superpower, the global stage will listen only to India, and Pakistan will be reduced to background noise. That is the ultimate game changer. Not war, not bloodshed, but prosperity that outshines their chaos. Because the greatest victory is not when your enemy surrenders to your sword, but when they collapse under the weight of their own irrelevance. You can build the most powerful army, strongest economy and the most advanced weapons, but if your nation is divided, you are already defeated from within. Pakistan knows this. They have studied India for decades, and their single most effective weapon has never been their military. It has been their ability to exploit division inside India. Every riot, every religious clash, every political chaos, they celebrate it. Why? Because they understand a fundamental truth. A nation that fights itself cannot fight anyone else. Internal unity is not a slogan, it is a survival strategy. Imagine this, 1 billion people thinking like one mind, moving like one body, and speaking like one voice. That is unstoppable. No power on earth can weaken such a nation, and that is exactly why Pakistan's entire playbook revolves around creating fractures inside India. They fund narratives, they fund misinformation, they exploit ideological differences. They do not need to win a war on the border if they can make India fight a war within itself. So, what does India need to do? Unite completely, unshakably, unapologetically, not as Hindus or Muslims, not as North or South, not as left or right, but as Indians, because the enemy does not care which religion you follow. Their target is your flag, your sovereignty, your identity. Every time we allow hate to divide us, we are doing Pakistan's job for them, for free, and every time we rise above division, every time we choose unity over chaos, we are destroying Pakistan's greatest strategy without firing a bullet. Unity is the deadliest weapon because it makes infiltration impossible. It builds trust, and trust builds strength. If India stands united, Pakistan loses its only psychological edge. They want to see cracks in the wall. Instead, we must become a fortress. When 4 billion voices speak in harmony, no propaganda can penetrate, no narrative can take root. Remember this, wars are no longer fought only on borders, they are fought on social media, in classrooms, in elections, and if India fails to recognize this, we will lose battles before they even begin. But if we unite, truly unite, then Pakistan will understand that its greatest dream of breaking India was nothing but a mirage. Unity is not an option, it is survival, and survival through unity will be India's loudest, most humiliating answer to every enemy watching us, hoping for our fall. For decades, India has treated global alliances like lifelines as if survival depended on who stood beside us. That mindset belongs to the past. The future does not belong to nations that beg for allies. It belongs to nations that become the ally others can't afford to lose. And right now, India has that potential. But it's time to turn potential into power. Why does this matter? Because Pakistan thrives on international sympathy and manipulation. They cry victimhood to the world, they lobby for aid, and they exploit the cracks between major powers. For years, India's response has been diplomatic defense, explaining, clarifying, justifying. That era must end. India should not be explaining itself at the table. India should be deciding the agenda of that table. That happens only when alliances shift from dependency to leverage. What does that look like in practice? It means India stops asking what the U.S. or Europe will do for us and starts making them ask, what will India allow us to do? It means using trade, technology, and security as bargaining chips, not as gifts. If the world needs India to counterbalance China, then that dependence is India's leverage. If global corporations want access to 4 billion consumers, that's leverage. If nations need Indian talent, Indian markets, Indian stability, that's leverage. Dependency weakens, leverage empowers. Right now, too many nations think India needs them more than they need India. That narrative must be destroyed. When India positions itself as the gateway to Asia's stability and prosperity, no alliance will be charity. It will be a transaction on India's terms. And here is where the game changes against Pakistan. If India becomes the indispensable ally of the world's major powers, Pakistan becomes a liability no one wants to touch. When global corporations pour billions into India, they will not tolerate instability. When major nations build strategic partnerships with India, they will have no patience for Pakistan's games. Isolation will choke Pakistan without a single war being fought. This is not arrogance, it's evolution. A rising power does not ask for favors, it negotiates from strength. The question is not who will support India. The question is who can afford not to. The moment India moves from seeking validation to commanding leverage, Pakistan will realize the world no longer listens to its noise. That silence will be India's loudest victory. The greatest wars of the 21st century are not fought with guns, missiles, or tanks. They are fought with perception, with fear, with control over the human mind. And this is where India must master the battlefield Pakistan has been using for decades: psychological warfare. Understand this clearly. A soldier's bullet can kill a man, but an idea can kill a nation. Pakistan knows this, and that is why their first attack is never on the border. It is in the narrative. They plant seeds of doubt, division, and distrust. They spread misinformation, manipulate social media, and create chaos in minds long before chaos erupts on streets. Why? Because a divided mind creates a divided country. India must flip this game, stop reacting to propaganda, start dominating the psychological battlefield. When Pakistan plans mischief, they should already fear the consequences, not because of military retaliation, but because of reputational destruction. India must own the global narrative so completely that Pakistan's lies die the moment they are spoken. How is this done? Through technology, through intelligence, through relentless messaging. Every rumor they spread must be crushed instantly, every false flag exposed within hours. India must become a fortress of truth so impenetrable that propaganda cannot survive for even a day. But beyond that, India must wage psychological offense, making Pakistan's leadership question their own strategies, making their population doubt the very system they defend, making the cost of hostility so mentally overwhelming that they choose surrender without a single shot fired. Psychological warfare is not just defense, it is domination. It is when your enemy wakes up every morning wondering what you will do next and fearing it. It is when their soldiers start questioning why they fight, when their citizens start questioning why they starve, when their allies start questioning why they stay loyal. That is the silent collapse of an enemy, and it begins in the mind. The truth is, wars of steel are expensive, but wars of perception are priceless. If India masters this art, Pakistan will crumble long before any border changes, because the most powerful weapon in history was never a bomb. It was an idea. And the idea India must project is this: resistance is futile, aggression is suicide, and peace with India is the only path to survival. That is the power of psychological dominance. Win the mind, and you win the war without ever going to war.